I have just finished 8 hours of solid grinding and sanding. Absolutely kills me. I do like a perfect layer, and then 3 or 4 weeks later I come back in and I've got to sand it all down to do the final layer. The problem is I go from this perfect, beautiful, perfect green substrate here to this, you know, this sanded, scrubbed down look that you know, it's a bit soul destroying. However, what happens is you get rid of all of the dags and any little loose fibres, and you increase the surface area to give the next layer to bite onto. So that's sort of what I'm working on, and just looking at it here, I've got to do the entire hull. So you can see here, right down in here, and right up into there where I've already started to sand. So I'm going to go through about 10,000 pieces of sandpaper and hours and hours of work to get this thing consolidated down to get the next layer on, and that's my final layer. So working hard to get it done. Oh, it's coffee time. Keithy's here. Keithy's not here. Surfing ninja. Oh, thank God we got Keith. Thank you, mate. Thanks for my coffee. Good on you, mate. Thank you. The ninja. Back up into the mould. Place. I can sit here and study my plans every morning with my coffee. Very important time. going to do a bit of a tidy up on here. I'm going to tidy up this flange. I've tried it with the orbital sander. I'm just chewing up paper, so I'm going to go to a flat disc grinder. That's the only way to go. I'm going to give it a good tidy up all the way along. You can see it's a bit daggy. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, and then I'll be able to do that final flange over the top before doing the rest of the 300 CSM on the final layer. So the good thing about that is I'm going to get it all consolidated and ready and finished all in one hit, rather than having to clean the machine out every day. So things are going to get pretty messy here. I'm going to get in with this little 5-inch flat disc. These things eat through the shit like it's nothing. You buy about 500 of them at a time because you need them, because you go through them pretty quickly. I have just finished 8 hours of solid grinding and sanding, and now I'm vacuuming, mate. This place is a cesspit. Check this out. It is absolutely freaking disgusting. Okay, so it's like a bomb's hit it in here. I've had to rip all of these modules out that I've had in position for months. Like, we're talking months, and they're all just piled here, templates and everything, and I'm just vacuuming out all of the dust. It was like a snowstorm in here yesterday. I've ground all of the flanges, the floor, all the walls has all been resanded for its final layer before I start putting in bulkheads. So yeah, a bit of a brothel. Gonna have to get into it today and try to tidy up a little bit and consolidate so that I can get glassing again on Monday. Can't wait for that. Yeah, there's a bit more of it over here. I've tried to tidy up as much as possible. I've got stuff covered, but honestly, I'm fighting a losing battle here. This here is as clean as it could ever be. Basically, I can run my hand over the entire surface without catching a burr, and that is just absolutely very pleasing to be able to do that, because now I'm ready for that final 300 CSM. I'm just about to laminate this week the last layer on the hull here, so I've spent all week pretty much sanding it and getting it all prepared, and it's absolutely perfect. Honestly, you can run your hand right along it without even getting a burr. I've roughened it up. I've basically taken any little burrs and edges off of it. What my next job is I want to determine where the forward bulkheads are, and therefore the ones further back at each station, and I already have that. If you have a look up on here, and I'll put a close-up of this image back up again. This area here, right here, we have a crash bulkhead. That crash bulkhead is determined from the very bow of the boat, and that's actually the very tip of the boat up here, right back 1.8 or 1800 millimeters from the bow, and that bulkhead there is an air-filled chamber. So this here, air-filled chamber, and then we have a flat sort of horizontal bulkhead, and then another one at 1.3. So I'm going to determine them by running a string line, and I've got a way to do that that's reasonably accurate, and basically by using a plumb line off the purlins I'm able to measure that up. So yeah, by doing that I'll get the exact position for each bulkhead on each side, and once I laminate them in, I can then move on to the further ones, but I will always try to measure from the very bow rather than from each subsequent bulkhead. That'll ensure that my stations are in exactly the right position for when I put in all the modules. And it's going to be a bit of a process because it's so deep, it's very hard to get the center point of each bulkhead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these big metal purlins I have here to get them exactly aligned, and then I'm going to drop a plumb line straight off them to find the center point. I think that's probably the best method because I've got so many curves and contours to deal with. A plumb line will give me a perfect center for the alignment of my bulkhead. So that's what I'm trying to do, but I've got to move a few things around before I do that to get the exact line. So this forward head's going to move forward, that way get it out of the way so I can start working out where everything goes. Yeah, that was pretty easy. Right, so the first point I need is I need one from 1.8 from the exact bow. Firstly working out where that is. Now the exact bow is there. Not right up at the front there because that's actually obviously the flange, but that's allowing for a bit of thickness in the hull, and obviously that's where I need to be measuring from, not the front of the flange. Alright, so I've clamped the purlin to the top of the deck, and I've got a 180 millimetre or 1800 millimetre, 1.8 metres to the exact bow. It's pretty well spot on. So I haven't determined the exact position for the front bulkhead, which is actually on the aft face of this purlin. I'll drop a string line down, exact centre of my bulkhead. Okay, because I don't have a plumb bob, I've just found something I can centre. Screwdriver, it'll do the job. Over the top, and hopefully be able to find my centre. So now I've found my distance from the bow, and I've dropped a plumb line here down to the floor. I now have a perfect position at 1.8 metres from the exact bow. Okay, so we're down here in the bow. This is the plumb line here. You can see it's pretty well stabilised. That's exactly 1.8 metres from the actual bow. That's what I've been aiming for. That is the first of the crash bulkheads that has to go in. It's only a waist high one. It's actually about 1.3 up from the centre line of the hull. So now I've got that point. What I want to do is get a point up here somewhere, because then I can make sure that it's straight and ensure that it's square. I can't rely on using a spirit level in here because it's just too many shapes, but by using a string with a plumb line on it, I get an exact indication of where these points need to be. So provided this is right, which it is, this should be exactly right. Shorten this right up. Move it along. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take three. I'm going to take one halfway up the first foam panel, another one further up, and then again on the other side. And that'll give me, hopefully, pretty much a dead accurate indication of where this bulkhead needs to sit. So now I'll let it just dangle for a second, try to stabilise it a bit. See if I can get it as centred as possible. And see where it touches down, which is here. So that should line up with that one, and then I'll move it over to this side and do exactly the same thing. Hopefully that gives me a perfect indication as to where it's got to go. So we get a little bit of swinging. And there it is there. It's that point right there. So make a mark and that's it. So there's my three marks. They should all line up exactly 1.8 from the bow. So I've now determined the exact position of this bulkhead. And although I have templates for the bottom part, the bulkhead doesn't continue all the way up here. There's another one further down that does, so I can now determine at this point the next one. It's important to remember that the bulkhead doesn't sit this side of this this line. It actually sits on the line, so that is the center line, and I'm putting a 12mm foam bulkhead in this particular spot, so I'm going to have to allow 6mm either side plus the glass, so it's going to be about probably 15mm thick, bedded in and then tabbed in place. Alright, so you can see I've positioned the template at 1.8. This only comes up to the height of, I think it's 1.3 from the bottom, or the absolute bottom of the boat, but this will be cut off around about here. And then that is the floor. So this will be the compartment for our crash bulkhead. A bit of a better view of it from up here, you can see what I'm getting at. So the position at 1.8, and then we have the floor template here. Just step over this pearl and get up onto the edge here. I'm about 15 feet up here. Essentially that there is going to be a storage locker, and there'll be a subsequent bulkhead, or another bulkhead here at 1.3 that'll come up. So this locker here actually has a hatch on the front of it. It is one that's moulded into the deck, but I'm not convinced I'm going to do that. I'm not convinced I'm not going to put a proper glass hatch on it. I don't particularly like it. It will just be a rope locker. Don't want any weight up in this area if I can avoid it. So my next bulkhead is the main forward bulkhead. It's at a further 600 on from the crash bulkhead, and this one actually goes across the bridge deck and then elbows around the forward head. So there's two positions I need to ascertain with this. So again, with the string line, move the purlin back 600, take a string line off it, take a plumb line, and then that gives me my position. So I've made a mark here at 2400, another one here 2400, and another one down here. This one doesn't go all the way to the floor. Actually, the bulkhead actually ends here because this is a floor panel under here. But then I'm going to join these together, and that'll give me my position for my forward plywood bulkhead. So you can see the exact point here. Down here is a black mark. Another one up here. Simply line these up. That is 2400. And that is my main bulkhead. So we're now on the inner side of the port bulkhead, or the porthole, and working out where he's going to go. And there we have it. So you can see that's all lined up. Now I could get a laser and try to laser all this, but this is a simple way. It's a way that's worked for millions of years, and it still continues to work. So here's our position here. So I have my outline here. This isn't the exact plan, but they're exactly the same as what the plan is. This is an outline that I inherited when I purchased all this mould. You can see here, we've gone 1800 from the bow. That's our first crash bulkhead here. We've then gone back 300. So we then have a crash bulkhead or a storage locker up in the front. This is like a robe here. Then we've gone along another 600, and that's this main bulkhead here. This one's actually a plywood bulkhead. It's a 25mm plywood marine ply bulkhead with sheathed in layers of 600 double bias on each side, which basically goes straight across elbows and around that head over there. So you can see that in effect. We then have another bulkhead at 1200, which is down here in the floor. This is a floor bulkhead from 1200 from the original crash bulkhead. So in a moment, once I ascertain the other side, I'm going to determine this one, which is equal, you have a look over here, this is my starboard hull, which is equal to the same bulkhead on the other side. So very, very detailed, and very important I get it exactly right. So this is the time to do it before I lay my last layer of glass, and then I can just get straight onto it. Okay, so it's important I'm working from side to side. I can't go forward because I need that level all the way along. I need to measure, and both sides need to be done simultaneously. Okay, so one thing to consider is the original boat was solid glass, so it was only really about this thick, maybe about 2 or 3 mils thicker. I've now gone to 30 mil foam in the hole here. This bulkhead, you can see down the bottom here, there's a massive gap. Now, I now need to reshape these bulkheads to fit them accordingly to ensure that I get the correct fit. Now, I'm going to put a limber hole in all of these bulkheads, basically to drain to around 2 or 3 bilge pumps down in the bilge here. But I've got to adjust these bulkheads, so they don't fit at the moment, but they will once I get templating. And these ones are 12 mil grit H80 foam. And as I get further down the back there, I'm going to run into the same problems. Every template I have is going to have to be adjusted for that particular problem. So that was a bit of a long one, guys. I'm going to leave you with this just fabulous time lapse that I shot here of me placing the bulkheads in, or the bulkhead templates in place, giving me a bit of an idea as to the layout of the floor and the bulkhead regions that I've got to now fabricate. It certainly is a pleasing event to be able to place stuff in, physical things in place rather than just looking at plans. But if you've liked this episode, please give me a like. Please subscribe if you're watching and you're not subscribing. It does actually assist me with my satisfaction of making the videos and producing them. And by putting the modules in this boat, I really got a good feel for how this whole thing's going to lay out. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to watch another couple of them, and I'll see you next time on Life on the Mould.